You've been paying into Social Security your entire working life, 40 years of FICA taxes deducted from every paycheck. And now, as retirement approaches, you're faced with one of the most consequential financial decisions you'll ever make. When should you claim your benefits? If you're like most Americans, you've probably used a break-even calculator. You plug in some numbers, it spits out an age, maybe 78, maybe 82, and tells you, if you live past this age, delaying pays off. If you don't, you lose simple, right? Here's the problem. That calculator is lying to you. Not just inaccurate, fundamentally, mathematically wrong, and it's costing retirees hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime benefits. But there's something even more disturbing. The way this tool presents information is actually designed, whether intentionally or not, to nudge you toward the worst possible decision. Today, we're going to expose the hidden math that financial advisors don't show you. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change your entire retirement. Let's start with why the break-even calculator is so popular. The Social Security Administration itself used this exact methodology for years when counseling prospective retirees. That's how deeply embedded this thinking is in our culture. The appeal is obvious. You input two scenarios, maybe claiming at 62 versus claiming at 70, and it gives you a single, concrete answer. You'll break even at age 79. It transforms an agonizingly complex decision into something that feels manageable, even scientific. But here's the first crack in the foundation. To use a break-even calculator, you need to input your date of death. Think about that for a moment. You're being asked to predict the one thing that's completely unknowable. And here's what the research shows. People are terrible at estimating their own life expectancy. We're swayed by recent events. If a parent died young, we assume we will too. If we're feeling healthy today, we assume we'll live forever. Our predictions are essentially emotional reactions disguised as data. But let's say you ignore that problem and just use the Social Security Administration's average life expectancy tables. Surely that's safe, right? Wrong, because by definition, average means 50% of people will live longer than that age. Yet this is exactly what millions of retirees are doing. But the mathematical sins of the break-even calculator go much, much deeper than this. Now, before we reveal the fatal flaw that makes this calculator completely worthless as a financial tool, I need to tell you about a psychological trick that's being played on your brain right now. It's so subtle that 90% of retirees never notice it. And once you see it, you'll understand why nearly everyone makes the same mistake. But first, let's talk about the math. Here's the break-even calculator's cardinal sin, the violation that makes every output it produces meaningless. It ignores the time value of money. Let me explain what that means. The calculator treats a dollar you receive at age 85 as exactly equal to a dollar you receive at age 62. In financial terms, it's using a 0% discount rate. And that's not just wrong. It violates the most fundamental principle in all of finance. Money received today is worth more than money received in the future. Why? Because money today can be invested and grow. A dollar at 62 could become $2, $3, or more by age 85 if invested wisely. The break-even calculator ignores this completely. Let me show you how dramatic this error is. Imagine you're comparing two claiming strategies. Taking a reduced benefit of $1,400 per month at age 62, or waiting until 70 for a maximum benefit of $2,480 per month. The break-even calculator adds up all the checks you'd receive under each scenario and tells you they're equal at some future age. But watch what happens when we do the math correctly using net present value analysis. If we assume just a 4% real rate of return on invested money, which is actually quite modest for a balanced portfolio, what looked like a close call suddenly shows that claiming at 62 is mathematically superior by tens of thousands of dollars. But here's where it gets controversial. If we use a lower discount rate, say 1% or 2%, which academics argue is more appropriate. Then delaying to 70 becomes the clear winner. So which is right? This is the great debate in retirement planning, and understanding it is absolutely critical. There are two schools of thought, and they arrive at completely opposite conclusions. The academic view says Social Security is a unique asset. It's government-backed, essentially risk-free, and adjusted for inflation. Therefore, you should discount future benefits using the risk-free rate, something like the return on Treasury inflation-protected securities, which historically has been around 0% to 2%. When you use these low rates, delaying to 70 always wins because you're getting an 8% guaranteed increase each year. You Wait says this is completely wrong because it ignores the real-world mechanics of the decision. Here's why. To delay benefits from age 62 to 70, you must fund your living expenses during those bridge years. And where does that money come from? Your investment portfolio. So the real question isn't, what's Social Security worth? It's what's the opportunity cost of withdrawing from my portfolio to delay claiming? If your balanced portfolio typically earns 4% to 5% real returns, and you're pulling money out to live on while waiting, that's your true discount rate. Using this higher rate, claiming at 62 becomes optimal for many retirees. So who's right? Actually, both arguments are partially correct. They're just answering different questions. But for real-world retirees making real decisions, there's a third factor that almost nobody talks about. And this factor has nothing to do with math. It's psychological. Remember I mentioned earlier that there's a subtle trick being played on your brain. Here's where it gets disturbing. The way the break-even calculator frames your choice is actively manipulating your decision. Studies have measured this effect, and the results are shocking. Researchers ran a fascinating experiment. They showed people the exact same Social Security information, but framed it in different ways. Here's what they discovered. When people used a break-even calculator, they reported an intended claiming age that was 12 to 22 months earlier than people who saw neutral information. Think about that. The calculator itself, not the financial facts, but simply the way it presents them, causes people to claim nearly 2 years earlier. Here's why. The break-even calculator frames your decision as a gamble. Will you live long enough to win? This framing triggers a powerful psychological bias called loss aversion. Losses hurt more than equivalent gains. Feel good. The calculator makes you focus on the potential loss, dying before you break even, losing money you paid in, rather than the potential gain from delaying. But it gets worse. The calculator also creates what psychologists call anchoring bias. It anchors your thinking to age 62, the earliest eligibility age, making that seem like the default. Every other age becomes delaying or waiting, rather than recognizing that 62 is actually claiming early. When researchers reverse the framing, instead of emphasizing what you lose by dying early, they showed what you gain by delaying. People's intended claiming age shifted 15 months later. The total psychological swing between different ways of presenting the same information is more than 2.5 years. This isn't theoretical. When the Social Security Administration changed its communication policy and stopped using break-even analysis in favor of simple bar graphs showing gains from delaying, claiming behavior shifted noticeably. The tool isn't neutral. It's a choice architecture that nudges you toward a decision. And for most people, it's nudging you toward the wrong decision. But the break-even calculator has even more blind spots. Let's count them. First, most simple calculators completely ignore cost of living adjustments. Social Security benefits increase with inflation every year. When you delay, you're not just getting 8% more. You're getting 8% more on a base that keeps growing with COLAs. This compounding effect is enormous. One analysis found that incorporating just a 2% COLA assumption reduces the break-even point by 19 months. Second, the calculator focuses exclusively on the individual. For married couples, this is catastrophic. The higher earner's claiming decision permanently sets the survivor benefit level. If the high earner claims at 62 to get their money, they may inadvertently slash their spouse's future survivor benefit by 30%. The break-even calculator is blind to this third. It ignores opportunity costs on both sides of the equation. If you claim early, what return could you earn by investing those benefits? If you delay, what returns are you giving up by spending down your portfolio? These are massive variables, arguably the largest in the entire decision, and the break-even calculator treats them as if they don't exist. So what's the alternative? The correct approach requires three things. The break-even calculator ignores. First, a personalized discount rate. Start with your portfolio's expected return. Say 4% for a balanced portfolio. Then adjust based on your specific risks. Do you have poor health or family history of early death? Add 1% to favor, claiming early. Are you withdrawing heavily from your portfolio to fund the delay? Add another 1.5% for sequence of returns risk. But are you in excellent health with long-lived parents? Subtract 1% to favor delaying for longevity insurance. The resulting rate could range from 2% to 8%, depending on your situation. And this rate completely determines your optimal strategy. Second, probabilistic longevity planning. Stop planning to an average age. Instead, ask, what level of confidence do I want that my plan will last my entire lifetime? A conservative planner might choose 90% confidence, meaning they plan to age 97 or beyond. This documents your longevity risk tolerance. Third, recognize that you face one of two primary risks. If you have under $1 to $2 million in assets, your primary risk is longevity risk, outliving your money. For you, Social Security is longevity insurance, and delaying to 70 is usually optimal because you're buying a government-backed, inflation-adjusted annuity at 8% guaranteed returns. But if you're very wealthy, have a full pension, or are in poor health, your primary risk is break-even risk, dying too soon and leaving unclaimed benefits. For you, claiming at 62 is rational because you don't need the insurance. Most advice treats everyone the same. The truth is, optimal claiming is deeply personal.